Hey friends, this is Marilyn from tarotclarity.com, and today's video is going to be, for the most part, regarding children. I do want one of my viewers, my subscribers for Beauty and Paint, asked a really good question about the shootings in Minnesota, and it was good enough to share. So I'm going to flip the camera, talk briefly about this, and then the next video will be on possible things to consider regarding Lily and Jack Sullivan from Nova Scotia, the two small children who disappeared without a trace. Sadly, it seems to happen with more frequency. So let's flip the camera and take a look at just a portion of the spread I did that may have related to the Minnesota incident regarding the politicians, Melissa Hortman and her husband, Senator, she was a Representative Melissa Hortman and her husband, and then Senator Hoffman and his wife, who were not killed, thankfully, but Mr. and Miss Representative and Mr. Hortman were, unfortunately. So the original question was, and there were other cards. I did a signature spread. I'm just showing the pertinent cards that might relate to this aspect. The question was, where and under what circumstances will the perp VB be apprehended? And this bottom row suggested to me that because there were other cards of water, and it kept driving home. Like when I think of location, I try to think of location, right? I try to think of where can we find him? Because that was the pertinent question at the time. So where will we find this guy? So I do feel like, there's maybe some water features, I do. And he was apprehended. He was found. Now, for Beauty and Paint said, well, what about that last row? Could that have been the Hoffman kids? One of them called. And I have to agree. And he or she also wanted to know if the 10 cups could have been an escalated emotional situation. Absolutely. Because above it, we have almost in the same number, a 9 of batons, which would show, at least to some degree, a pretty significant level of upset, right? And these two children, these two youths, now I don't know how old the kids were, but I would understand them as being under the age of majority, right? These two kinds of kids these two cards, the Page of Swords and the Page of Coin, would represent kids with a cool head, sharp wit, had their act together under an extreme time of duress. Now, they didn't call the police and say, go check the Hortmans. It wasn't something like that. It wasn't as direct, but they're making the phone call, of course, rather, and not delaying. I think any reasonable person would have made the phone call, especially if they were teenagers. I don't know how old these kids were, but especially if they were at least teenagers, I think any of them would have had the frame of mind to call the police. So there's that, right? I think any reasonable kid that of a certain age would have called the police. But if they were really young, then it would really, I think, be reflective of cool kids, cool-headed kids. And it could be seen as it redirects the case and finding him. One of the cards was the Chariot. Now I interpreted that as though he had gotten another car, that aside from the car that they originally found, that he had another car. He had access to another car. somebody gave him another car. So, but this is another idea, food for thought, right? So it could have been doing double duty. They could have been near a water feature, could have been near a school, because I saw this as a place of education, of learning for kids. So it's, I definitely want to point out that this could have been a factor. Now, the children didn't say, go check the Hortmans. It wasn't anything as direct as that, but they did have a cool head and they were able to communicate, and they found I mentioned the chariot, not just to say that he had a car and he escaped in another car, but to mention, that once they got there and they saw the car, they saw him, he took off by foot. But within the car, they saw that there was a hit list, of other individuals. So then they were able to figure that out. So I did want to mention that. Now you'll notice you probably have noticed, let me flip the camera. You'll notice that I never say for entertainment purposes only. That's not something you'll hear from my lips. I think I've said it once in 600 and some videos regarding the Kentucky Derby, because or one of the races or something like that, where I would say, don't bet money on this. This is for entertainment purposes only. But because a great number of my videos have to do with finding people or lost people or helping to solve a situation, I don't see it as entertainment. Somebody else's misfortune is not entertainment. And that's sincerely, I mean that from the bottom of my heart. And any reading that I do is not for entertainment purposes only. Even if somebody's saying, oh my gosh, how do I get over the death of a parent? Or, oh my gosh, how do I get over this loss of a person who ghosted me? None of that is for entertainment purposes only. My perspective is things to consider in a situation that may help clarify things. And many times things can be clarified if you look at them from a different point of view. And that's all. It's not entertainment purposes only. It's just to shed light or to redirect our thinking to imagine a different scenario than what we've been looking, how we've been thinking of something. Just like with when I do my lost objects, right? When we lose something, we look in the last spot we saw it 1,000 times. Well, you're going to keep looking in that same spot. You're going to get the same thing, because you're never going to find it there. So you have to redirect your thinking to look in another place. And that's how I see tarot, is just to redirect our thinking, maybe consider things we haven't considered before. Okay? So, nonetheless, I do think that that row with the children, thinking children, kids with like a cool, collected mind, or educated kids, he was found near his home, where he had children, so that's part of it too. So it could mean more than one thing at the same time, but I think it's very interesting how tarot plays. I got a request by 8 Polyglot, who asked me if I would consider doing a video on 2 missing children, Lily and Jack Sullivan from Nova Scotia. They disappeared, I think, May 2nd. So it's recent, a little over a month ago, going on 2 months, month and a half. I feel, and a lot of people just want to go stump the psychic, and I'm not a psychic. But a lot of people, when they want a tarot reading, they figure, let's stump the psychic and give her no information whatsoever and let her read the cards and tell us everything we want to know about something. Well, you could do that with people if you want, that's fine. But, the way I feel is like, the more I know about a situation, the more relevant the cards will be if I apply them in the correct way, So I did do a tiny bit of research on this. The children are quite young, I think 6 and 4 or something like that, 6 and 2. They're little. And they lived in Nova Scotia with their mother, and a stepfather, or a man who was in their life. They have, the couple has a third child who the stepfather who spoke said that the mother and he were in bed. They're playing with or the little baby was in bed with them. And they heard the two children, I think, in the kitchen. And then all of a sudden it was quiet. And they didn't hear the children anymore, Jack and Lily. So they investigated. They went into the room where they thought the children were, and they were gone, and their boots were missing too. So the children put their boots on. So, and then, according to the stepfather, he got into his vehicle and started canvassing the area, trying to find them, and was unsuccessful. And that's what we know. The police or the authorities have since considered that foul play could have been a part of this. Who the foul play was, we don't know. We do know since this happened, the mother left where she was staying with the stepfather, and she ghosted him effectively. She dropped him from social media. She blocked all contact with him, and she went back to live with or to stay with family members. So there's that. Now, we don't know if the mother suspects something or if she's just in her time of severe grief, that this is how she's behaving. This is how she's responding to her grief, which, maybe she wants to go home to family. Now, it doesn't explain why she would block him, but wanting to be close to her family. It doesn't explain why she would block him. But that's just the detail that we can consider. To do this read, and the question will be, where might we find little Jack and Lily Sullivan for the most optimistic outcome? We want them to be found, right? We want them to be found. So we want information on where these children might be found, and so to bring them home to their mother. To do this, I've decided to use the Marshmallow Marseille. It's one of the decks I said if you wanted to teach children, to use tarot, except for the fact that it's out of print. It's extremely expensive, but it is one that I think works appropriately for issues regarding children. So that's why I've decided to use this one. I'm not sure. I think this one might be the second edition. It's the one that has the shiny backs, just for people who'd like to know, the decks. And there's another point I wanted to make. Oh, it's based on the Angela Valla Tarot of Trieste. So it's based on a historic Italian deck. Okay, so let me go into my meditative place and most humbly ask the universe, and most sincerely ask the universe to help direct us to find these children quickly and bring them home to their mother. Alrighty then, here we go. Ten Swords. Two batons. Two children, perhaps. Collective thing. Maybe other people involved. Another card of the Suit of Swords. I maniacally shuffle these decks. The Sun card. Oh, joyous. Perhaps brother and sister front and center. That's very hopeful. We have an adult male, King of Coin. Could be the breadwinner. Could be a father figure. Could be the father. I don't know the circumstance if the father is part of the equation, the natural father. We have the Queen of Cups, the mother. or a woman, emotional woman. Boy, oh boy, look at this, like all these swords. And the Queen of Coins. Wow, so we have two queens, a king. The queen and the king of the same suit are in relation to one another. We see a de-escalation of violence, or could be violence. It doesn't have to be violence. It could be a de-escalation of violence. It could be a de-escalation of communication. But boy, this is so hopeful. Let me do the quint cards, and I'll be right back. So look at all the people in this spread. We have one king, and we have, if you count the female pope, we have three women in positions of authority. Man. Now we have the star, and we have the children front and center in the sun. And oh my gosh, I just want to feel optimistic. I want this to be very optimistic, that they will be found. It's been a while. I mean, it's been a month and a half. They are very little kids. On their own, I don't know how, what the wherewithal would be for them to keep themselves going if they just wandered off. They are in Nova Scotia. I imagine it's kind of crisp up there. It's chilly. I have been to Nova Scotia. My first husband and I honeymooned in Nova Scotia for 3 weeks, and we did the whole thing of Cape Breton, and we stayed at B&Bs, and this was 40 some years ago. It's a beautiful, verdant place, but I would imagine that it could be dangerous for children, right? It could be if they're on their own. Now, could they have been intercepted by other people? Well, there's a lot of other people that are being mentioned. We notice, I want to look at the star and the sun, which serve as and this is front and center, okay? So they serve as very, very, very optimistic cards. Could they mean something else that we're not thinking? I think what we're thinking is the worst. So maybe we're being told to rethink it as a positive, that they can be found. We navigate by the stars at night, and broad daylight, so I want to believe that these cards are redirecting us from thinking the worst into believing that they can be found. Now, who do we have to consider? Well, perhaps we have to consider the adults in the equation. We do have the high priestess. Many times, people call her the high priestess. I call her the female pope, but many of you might be familiar with her as the high priestess. When we see her, she can evoke a few things within us. She can make us think of following our intuition. Certainly, if this falls right next to the domestic queen, right, the queen of coins. It could be that the mother is following her intuition or thinking, it falls right next to her. So it could be the mother is listening to her intuition. However, she's got her back to intuition, right? Maybe she doesn't want to think, maybe she doesn't want to believe something. But at the same time, her intuition, she's turning her back on intuition. That's interesting. The final card for the entire spread, and if those of you who are watching this, watching my channel for the first time, this is my signature spread. I developed this spread. I don't mind anybody using it, but I do prefer that I request that if you use my spread in a public forum, that you give me credit for it because it is my spread. Anyway, the Empress card, who occurs right here as the card for the entire thing, it hinges on a woman in a position of authority. Perhaps a law enforcement person who finds her or leads the authorities to her. Could be a woman in a position of authority at a high level, a high rank. She's looking in this direction, but she does appear next to the Lover card. So it could be that she thinks, and it's singular, lover, it's not lovers. So it's possible she thinks the Lover in the equation next to a King of Coin, the domestic father, could be could be a bio father, could be the other father. I don't know about the bio father. I don't know anything about him being in the picture or not. But maybe the suspicion is that a male figure has something to do with it. Not necessarily, or maybe, I haven't seen any videos where the stepfather was talking. Everything I read about the stepfather and what he did was, I just read an article about it. I've never seen anything regarding the natural father. I don't know if he's deceased. I don't know if he's a known entity. I don't know anything about that. So I can't pinpoint, because it would help to know those things. It's a domestic situation. It's a lover situation, following intuition, aspects of the same woman. I think these are aspects of the same woman, emotional and the mother of the household. Two of Swords is a minor. If we're talking about aggression, I don't see this card as aggression. I just see this as communication between individuals, Maybe the mother feels like she has to go home to her own mother. Maybe she feels like, she just has to go home to her own mother. Maybe her parents are giving her the idea that it's him. Maybe the parents are leading her to believe that it's the stepfather. It's got to be the stepfather, right? A lot of people would think that, and in cases where children are disappeared, a lot of times this, the step has something to do with that. So it could be that her parents are directing her to believe that. That's a possibility. I don't know for a fact that that's what's happening. Remember, these cards aren't predictive. These are just things to consider about the situation. And what the universe allows me to repeat, because I make it known when I do my prayer and I do my meditation, that this will be put out there in the public. And I would never agree. The universe knows how I roll. I would never want to put something out there that could ever ruin any kind of investigation, right? So I'm just getting the periphery of what I'm allowed to see, and what I'm allowed to share. It does here up here, and maybe there was a fight, Maybe there was a fight. Maybe the children heard a fight, and I see the suit of batons as a collective of people. So maybe there was a fight. Maybe they got frightened. Maybe they decided to take off. Maybe they decided to, maybe the 6-year-old or the older child, I said, let's get out of here. Now, maybe, sometimes we can look at the suit, the deck of Marseille, not just at what the meaning of 5 batons might mean, but what maybe it looks like. So if perhaps there was a fight, maybe they were frightened, maybe they took off. Maybe the older child knew a place to hide. Maybe this is a possible place, if it reminds anybody of anything up in Nova Scotia. Could it be a bridge? Could it be... It's 5. It's unstable. Maybe it wasn't the best choice to go to, but it was what the child understood. That this, she navigated. I think the older child was a girl. I don't know. I think the older child was a girl. I keep saying girl. That's how I'm receiving the message. So maybe the elder child, or the girl in the group, or the elder child navigated them to a place that she thought was safe. Now the thing is, they're very, very young children, and at what stage, are they still safe after a month and a half without being found? We want these children to be found. But I'm not seeing a location. Maybe let's let me redirect my brain and not see these as the best possible outcome, right? Let me force myself to see that. I don't know if they were on Cape Breton. I mean, I don't know where in Nova Scotia they lived. I'm not sure. But of course, Cape Breton, is surrounded by water. But maybe, water, just like in Minnesota, maybe water is just a given. There's water everywhere, right? We do have two children. Let's look at these cards as direction. We have two children in a garden, or traditionally this is seen as like a park or a garden. A good, maybe they navigated their way to like a garden or a park. Or maybe that's where they'll be found. Maybe near a bridge. Maybe they were frightened of someone. We still see, it's a little bit de-escalated underneath, but it's still a high number of, if we're thinking of aggression, or if we're thinking of violence, it's a little less. Maybe they thought by leaving they would make the situation better, to get away from somebody, the lover in the equation. And I don't want to implicate or suggest that anybody is guilty of anything. I'm just trying, I'm just trying to interpret the cards in the most meaningful way to help bring some insight to a situation, dire situation, to help find these children. I'm not blaming anybody. What I'm saying is maybe the children were fearful, or maybe there was an argument, or maybe they were scared and they took off. That's a possibility. Maybe somebody found them. I don't, maybe somebody, it's possible that but I don't necessarily see that. I see that they left. Maybe they were afraid of someone in the equation. And then the mother left to go home to her mother. And perhaps, they put the idea in her head that he's no good, get rid of him, or just block him. Maybe he had something to do with it. If we're looking for context clues where these children might be found, which is really, really what we want, we can look at the cards doing double duty as other things. We might see a bridge. We might see an enclosure. These cards, visually, could lead us to believe that there's something that's, well, it's not like it's a sword that has, individual flowers in it, that they're being kept, they hid in a box or something, or they hid in an enclosure. This seems more like a structure. Like some type of structure. And then here, I want to put them in their correct spots. And then here we have children in an enclosure, right? We have children within a park, or within something like that. I mean, we obviously have water here. We have a hill. We have a woman with vessels of water. Okay, historically, tarot does have some nudity, and the star card is one that might be. So if it offends you, I apologize, but that's just the way it is. That's how it rolls with tarot. The star card is frequently a nude woman. Maybe if you really want to, think about like places where it could be, is maybe near a laundromat. She's not washing clothes, but I'm just trying to think of things, for location. Now we have we have 8 stars. We have 8 stars. Does 8 figure anywhere else? No, we don't have any other 8s. We have 10, 9, 2, 5, 2. We have a couple 2s. Communication, maybe. I'm perceiving this as communication by her mother, her parents. I think maybe her mother. And then communication between the children, or the children's collaborative effort. I think maybe the children might have been frightened and left. And maybe they had good reason to be frightened. I'm not saying, but maybe they'll be found, or the efforts of a woman in a position of authority will direct those responsible for finding these children. Maybe her information will direct them to the location where they are. Boy, this is a tough one. I'm sorry. This is all I'm receiving. Let me flip the camera for a second. Just because we ask questions doesn't mean it's, available to us, and especially if there's an ongoing case. Never want to be ever, carelessly say something that could jeopardize anything. I'm saying everything I see in this situation. And I did ask the universe to just allow me to see what they want me to see. And this is it. I don't know how helpful this has been. I hope it is helpful to some degree, at least in giving hope. And I will keep these children for sure in my hopes and intents, positive intents, without a doubt, because this is a tough one. Until next time, friends, peace. Stay well, be brave.